Hi, everybody. My name is Joseph Ephraim, but you can call me Joe. And I'm just going to be going over the stuff that we talked about this week. We have our early childhood development, um, and as well as implicit theories, CSWE competencies, and much more. So let me start with our first bit, prenatal development. So in prenatal development, we have three stages. We have the germinal stage. In the first 2 weeks after conception is where the fertilized egg attaches to the uterine wall. And then we have the embryonic stage where the the body's main organs will start to form, and then we have the fetal stage, which more growth and refinement starts to happen until birth starts to happen. Um, what I like most about this stage or this development is hereditary um, and environment. How I love how each and every single what's it called trait will connect and change depending on what the two people's genetics are and how it affects the child as well. I find that all very super cool. Um, and as well as the environmental factors while during this stage, with like what you're eating, your nutrition, as well as, stresses in life and all these other different circumstances that can play a huge role during birth or during pregnancy. Um, so to move on into the infancy and toddlerhood stage, I like to break it down into physical, cognitive, and emotional at these stages. So first, we'll start with physical, how we start to see infants start to gain more strength and coordination as we see them start to do more crawling, rolling, and even walking. Then we also have the cognitive stage. With Piaget talks about the sensory motor stage, where babies tend to learn through their five senses. And then we also have emotional, where Erickson talks about trust versus mistrust. And so during this theory, we start to see when babies start to get more consistent and nurturing factors in growing up, we start to see that they start to trust that the world is more safe. But then if care is inconsistent or even neglectful, we start to see mistrust and more insecurity start to develop within the child. And we'll start to see that later on in life as well. Then we also have autonomy, shame, and doubt. This leads to more independence, where we start to see that they start to say no, feeding themselves, choosing what clothes they want to wear. Um, and then when they are encouraged, they start to build more confidence. But when they're ashamed, they start to doubt their abilities. Um, Now we also have the early childhood, where we see it physically, we start to get in more improved balance and as well as better thinking and communication. Um, then we also have cognitive, where Piaget talks about the pre-operational stages, or pre-operational stage, singular. And then where we start to see that imagination starts to become more outbranched, but logical thinking is still sort of limited. Then we also have emotionally, where Erickson talks about the uh, what's it called, initiative versus guilt. We start to see that children start to take more initiative when it comes to their learning and how they play, and more their interests. And then as well, we start to see that when we start to encourage that curiosity, then we start to develop more confidence. But when we're scolded, we start to see more guilt and hesitation. Um, Now, during this time, also there is also the theory of the minds, where we start to see that children start to realize that other people have feelings, and their own thoughts that may be different from theirs. So they be starting to become more aware and start building more empathy at this stage. And then now we have our implicit theories, where we start to talk about um, engaging, assessing, intervening, and evaluating. So engaging it is building rapport with a individual and their family. Then we also have assessing, where we start to see what stage the client or student may be at, and what needs that they that they require to get better learning and better development. Then we also have intervening, where we start to jump in and start providing a certain care that is tailored to their needs, that may be more appropriate and effective for them specifically. And then we also have evaluating, where we start to take data on these interventions, so that way we can better um, improve that intervention later on, so that there's better development. So to close all this, I just wanted to ask, for current and I guess people who would want children, how does learning all this will impact your raising this said child, and developing, whether they need certain needs that may be unique to them, or being more aware of how to learn later on in the future. Let me know in the comments. And yeah, I'll hope you have a great night, and I'll talk to you later.